What's up, internet weirdos? Trying out a new opening line, so that's the first one that came to mind. But this is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily here, and I'm joined today by filmmaker Stirling McLaughlin, who is one half of Spaceship Town, and they're the filmmakers behind a slew of shorts and features. But we're here to talk about one in particular, which is We're Not Them. Which Sterling has? Does this have a? Are you putting this towards festivals? Does it have a release date yet, or is this something that's still um, pending release?
So we actually literally just hit save a few weeks ago, and we're having our premiere at Beyond Chicago,
That's right.
which is the Chicago satellite. I guess satellite, is that the right word? There's the Chicago presentation of Beyond Fest, which is obviously the gigantic Los Angeles festival that I'm sure everyone knows and loves. Yeah, we're kind of blown away and very fortunate to have that be our world premiere. And it also, as somebody, I'm based in Evanston, Illinois, so that's like a bikeable distance from my house. So it's just very exciting to have a festival like Beyond in our backyard.
And it's I mean it's a great festival. I think one of the things that I love most about Beyond Fest is that they do a really good job of harmonizing legacy films and genre and new films and genre and bringing them together and usually with some pretty cool like guests. I know that there was they did Lady Snowblood last year, and I'm really pissed that I missed that because they had the actor who played Lady Snowblood show up.
Uh-huh.
So you just get a lot of those like opportunities, and I think even with Chicago, they're bringing in some really interesting folks to go along with some of the anniversary screenings they're doing. I want to say Highlander. There's going to be some Highlander coverage there, but
Uh-huh.
so yeah, that's super exciting, and congratulations
Yeah.
to you all. And before we get into We're Not Them, because I have so many questions and all of them are good. Had a lot of fun with this, especially seeing some familiar faces and Fina Sanchez and also Sarah Fletcher, two folks who we've worked with here at Macabre Daily. But can you tell
Chocolate
me a
and
little?
peanut butter, as far as I'm concerned. That's the ultimate combination. To have both of them in one movie is an immense privilege, to
I
say
mean,
the least.
that's actually a perfect analogy for them because I was introduced to Find It through Sarah. And then I realized that, and then she kind of shared with me a little bit how they know each other and just kind of I think it's a really interesting microcosm of how, as we age, the people we get to know often go and do things. And then sometimes that brings us back around to each other or we end up working together in some capacity. So, really cool to see them. But thinking about you and your partner, Wilder Konschak, when did you two decide to team up and create Spaceship Town?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a long-ish answer. I'll try and keep it
Love longish
interesting.
answers.
Yeah. So Wilder and I go back to the second Clinton administration. So we met in college, we went to Hampshire College together, and we've been working together in various capacities since. Wilder had like an on-air sitcom called Darwin's Kids that I was an actor in. That's how we officially first met. And Darwin's Kids is a really interesting thing because we ran it for several years while we were in college, and then there was a long hiatus, and then completely unrelated to us, a few students recently picked it back up. So there's actually new episodes going. So it's like a on-campus sitcom with like a 25-year history.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, no, it's kind of wild. But so yeah, so we met then, and then we've been sort of working together like ever since. There was a sort of collective of us that we went by the name Misplaced Planet, and we're sort of proto YouTubers. Like in the very, very early days of YouTube, we were making sort of sci-fi and comedy shorts, uh, usually with Wilder writing, occasionally with me acting, occasionally with me doing music, and that went on for a number of years, and then. Wilder and I really started working together when there was a feature film that Wilder had written that the two of us directed together called Cold War, unrelated to the Polish film Cold War. Unfortunately, came out the same year because title searches do not work. But but we worked together on that. Again, that was our first feature, and that really cemented us as sort of a directing team. And then Spaceship Town, that was about 10 years ago, and then Spaceship Town has sort of become this like nom de guerre that we write under, primarily write under, but also direct things together. So yeah, that's sort of the long-ish history. And then we really started to work together a lot during during just prior to, but then through quarantine, we had always had plans to do more films together and features in particular. And then when lockdown happened, it just became kind of a natural pivot to start just writing more. And we've been very blessed to have a lot of attention for our scripts at various genre festivals. Again, we started kind of sci-fi comedy. Horror became sort of a something we gradually slid into, like semi-consciously, semi-not consciously. Really because we were doing comedy that people regarded as being just a little too dark. Like I don't know how to make a rom-com without a sledgehammer fight. So I don't know. So
Honestly, every rom-com should have one, so you're not
I
wrong.
agree. Uh, so the horror community has no questions. You know, the
Yeah.
comedy community was a little like, "What are you guys doing?" The horror community was like, "Yeah, come in."
Yeah.
Um,
Water's
so
warm.
right.
Sledgehammers are sharp. So
So our scripts have been like super like embraced in the horror community, which has been really gratifying. Um, and yeah, and that brings us directly to We're Not Them, which is, you know, COVID is mostly not entirely in our rear view, and we just had the opportunity to just start making things again, and this was the thing we made. So
well, one, I love this kind of this kind of oral history of you all working together and how it's shaken up. And I agree that on a few fronts, one, like I think a lot of people ask themselves during the COVID lockdowns, like, what is my purpose now? Because
right.
it's all changed. And I think, I mean, even Macabre Daily started in November 2020. So it's very much like I think a lot of people thought about what's going to make me happy and how do I, especially people that are creative in nature but work in non-creative roles like myself, where and my job that pays me is not as creative as the things that I do that don't. So
Right.
it's a good outlet for that. But also, the adjacency of horror and comedy has always been there. In fact, I think so many of the best horror films have like intentional and unintentional comedy in them. And even some of the darkest comedies are scary because of how much they deal with they walk that line. Like I think a lot of The Coffee Table as a movie that um, knows like in within the first 30 minutes, every person watching that movie will know whether this is for them or not. And if it's for them, it's going to be a great ride. But if it's not, like that's okay. But it's because it gets so dark, but it's so deeply funny in its darkness. And with We're Not Them, I think one of the most compelling things is it's there's so many themes you could apply to it based off of the narrative and kind of what it's talking about, which is essentially this idea that people are stuck inside of a house or a shack of some sort, a la Night of the Living Dead, and they're trying to
Uh,
fend off what's outside. But the reality is, just like in Night of the Living Dead, the people in the inside are potentially as dangerous, if not more so, than the people you're trying to save yourself against. So
right.
in terms of like the origination of the concept, what were some of the things that you both were thinking about when you put it together thematically, and then how that came into like the full narrative?
Yeah, I mean, again, our background, we're called Spaceship Town. We come from a sci-fi sort of mindset. And really what I mean by that is we come from a sort of a like a I guess really satire would be the easiest way to say it. Like we're always making things that have a deeper meaning or a deeper intention behind them. And this is certainly, I mean, I think this particular film is really overtly so, right? Like I feel like it really wears its sort of satirical
It's got a sleeve tattoo of the message right on there,
yes,
you know?
right, exactly. So as far as the influences go, I mean, Night of the Living Dead is a huge influence just in general. But I also for this film, pretty overtly, I mean, we shot it in the aspect ratio of Night of the Living Dead. It's in black and white. It is, you know, about a group of sort of like thrown together survivors in a shack. But there's the origination of the idea is I just had been noticing this pattern sort of again and again and again, all kinds of different, you know, anytime you have a group of three or more people, you're in trouble, is sort of how I feel. That's where politics come in. And I
Yep.
feel like, you know, I just noticed this pattern over and over again that like the people who are critical of the group are always the people that kind of get the worst treatment, right? Like you can be a completely evil person, force, policy that will never draw the same ire as somebody that goes, hey, what's going on here? Why are we doing this? And so that was really the pearl of an idea. Also, there's a film I don't know if you're familiar with it, but called Jackals that our friend Jared Rivet wrote.
Yeah.
that is, that's when you see the film that influence is pretty overt too, especially with the animal masks of the outsiders. But I just really love siege horror, and I love that sort of subgenre, and I just have always wanted to play with that. And so those two ideas started to kind of creep together. And then I met Fina at FilmQuest, and she had this fantastic short called A Good Scream, which is I don't want to spoil anything about, but it has this sort of element where she is kind of playing someone who has to endure a lot of idiots. And there's something very funny
That's
about
just
her just
waking
kind
up in
of
America these days is pretty much, the
yeah.
that's the experience.
Right. So her sort of nodding and oh, okay. Hmm. I just saw that and I just thought it was so funny. I thought it was such a great film. So I just rocked up to her after her screening and was like, we got to do something together. And it was a few years before we got this together, but I was like, okay, so I have this idea, I have this sort of like pearl of a concept, and I have this actor I really want to work with. And those things all coalesced. I brought Wilder into it. The two of us wrote the script together. And I did the thing that I always know you should do and I never do, which is was like, I'm going to write this for a location. And I knew that Fina was somebody who had a desert shack. She's got this, kind of complex of murder shacks on like a 5 acre parcel of land out in 29 Palms. And so I just was like, hey, I wrote this script, no reason. I just want to know what you think. And she was like, oh, we could film this at my place in 29 Palms. And I was like, oh, that's so crazy. I never would have thought of that.
I had no idea you had that.
Yeah, oh, that's wild. So yeah, shout out Fine Ass Camping, which is the name of her compound, but that's where we shot it.
I
So
mean,
that's
it that
that's the longish version of how we got here.
I mean, honestly, well, one, like, it's so fun to hear how these connections happen because I think a lot of people who don't go to film festivals and kind of haven't interacted with a lot of folks that are in the industry working in it, I understand that there is a lot of people that are really receptive. If you have an idea and you're willing to work on it, a lot of people will be willing to support you. It's more just having the boldness to say, "Hey, I really like you, what you're doing. Would love for us to do something together, and see how that pans out." But also this idea that like the we're not them, I think, even though it does wear like the subtext proudly as text, I think it also has such a multiple application to what we're seeing now, which is, if you're like the D, like I don't know what the word I'm looking for is like the way we put a lot of pressure on immigrants, for example,
Sure.
like is as obviously as a microcosm of this idea of like who do we let in and who do we keep out.
Yeah.
But also realizing like sometimes the people that are already inside in this, people that are already citizens are not great people to begin with. I think I just read something yesterday that like 1 in 3 Americans doesn't think that their country folk are actually good people. So like it's very much this large distrust we each have of each other. And
Right.
it's because I think we always are coming to each other from a place of disagreement, mostly where we start as opposed to with agreement. But thinking about the inspirations you had, I also noticed that the kind of heavy influence of something like an Outer Limits in the
Oh,
Twilight Zone you mentioned, and
for sure.
obviously Rod Sterling is so good at like making these moral tales of parables
Right.
almost of like here's why this thing is awful and here's why you should learn from it. Um, but how did you go about ensuring that were able to get your point across, but also not bludgeoning people with it? Because I think that's what makes, because again, it is like the text here is like it is you're not making strong points, but it is obvious what you're trying to forecast. But it's also not like this is the message, kind of like in Don't Be a Menace, where he just pops up and says message, like it's not
Right.
that obvious.
Yeah, I mean, and like a couple of things about that. I mean, one is that yes, we do satire. Yes, we do things that are overtly kind of message driven. But also like I didn't want to do a film that was like Donald Trump cheats at golf. It's like yeah, okay. I mean, there's plenty of people doing that. God bless. He does. He's a terrible cheater at golf, among other worse things he does. But I didn't want to make something that was so like current. I wanted to do something that was really rooted more in human behavior as opposed to just like a rip from the headlines kind of moment. Mostly because short films take a long time to make,
Yeah.
pre-production, post-production, like I didn't want to make something that felt kind of stale by the time we were able to get it out. Um, so that's one. Uh, Also, like, I think we really benefit from the fact that 7 minutes long, 7.5 minutes long. I think that if we tried to stretch this idea into a feature, it would get a little bit more tiresome,
Yeah,
possibly.
potentially.
Um, yeah, potentially. So, anybody's got some money they want to throw at a feature for We're Not Them, let's talk. But I do think that it works really well as a short. It's basically like a sketch. Um, so I think those are kind of the ways that we're able to do it. Also, I think anytime you're doing something that is sort of message driven, there does come a point when you're writing where you got to step back and go, okay, and now what's the movie want? What does
Right.
this story need? And you got to be able to like, recognize that there's themes and there's characters that might be representatives for actual people or actual thought patterns. But at a certain time, you got to go, and it's a siege horror film. How are we gonna like make that make sense within this universe? So yeah, so I hope that answers your question, but
It
that's definitely what
does.
we thought about going into it.
And I'm also curious to understand like the rhythm of work that you and Wilder have, because
Yeah,
one of the benefits of having, excuse me, like a partner in this process is that you have someone to bounce ideas off. And a lot of the folks I've talked to, who have like this kind of co-writing, co-directing partnership, they recognize very early on the strengths of each other and they lean
Mhm.
into those. So someone might
Yeah,
be better at like working with the actors and say, "Hey, you're going to handle the performances. I'm going to be working with the DP and our lighting folks to like ensure that we get the shot right." So how do you all divide and conquer, and then how do you leverage each other to kind of get that feedback in the moment about, is this what the movie wants versus what maybe me as the writer wants to put forward?
sure. Yeah, I mean it's again the fact that we have like half our lives to look back on, our
Helps.
partnership is so deep. That's very helpful. We can sort of just anticipate each other in really good ways. Also, we do have a bit of a division that sort of goes like in advertising, it would be art and copy.
Right.
Like Wilder is very classically a writer. Oh, and here he is, as we were talking about him. Uh, so
It was
Wilder's
just all
very
planned just as such. You were going to mention
right,
his
yeah,
name three times like Beetlejuice, and Wilder shows
and,
up.
and he appears. Uh, Wilder, we're on the air. Just be forewarned if you want to tuck your shirt in before you turn the camera on. But yeah, so Wilder and I, again, we've been working together since college, and he's very classically a writer. He's a very good writer. Not that he doesn't do other things, because he obviously does. I come from a graphic design and fine art background, so there is a bit of a handoff where like I'm kind of the visuals person, he's kind of the words person, and then the synthesis of those things. There's bleed back and forth, obviously, but that kind of allows us to sort of have a moment of like, all right, this feels like I might have a different idea, but I'm going to trust Wilder on this. Or, um, I Wilder might think this or think that, but then we can kind of hash it out and argue it out. Also, because we have just such a depth of relationship, um, we talk about like it's whoever cares more. Like if there is a disagreement, you go
Right.
like you kind of fight it out, and then you get to a point where you go, I just realized I'm just fighting to fighting. Yeah, yeah, whatever. like
And
you
that's
go.
just good. That's good. Like that's just good relationship in general advice is like when you're working together, whether it's in a professional capacity, romantic, or just as friends, like knowing
Yeah,
like, am I just fighting on this hill that I don't plan on dying on, or am I really prepared to like put a tombstone on this thing?
right. Exactly.
And I don't think we
Exactly.
ever come to a tombstone point on anything.
Yeah, no, usually we're like hills dying, those don't seem
Yeah,
pleasant. Like this is supposed to be fun. Like
exactly.
let's not ever have anybody die on any hills. Um, so yeah.
It
So
doesn't have to
anyway,
be a Donner Party experience, right? A partnership. It's like, well, eventually we're going to eat people and get to the top, but or get out of this mess. But
right. And
um,
that's where the actors come in really. They're just food stock. So yeah.
the
It's
strangest.
interesting because I actually do think it's interesting because, having been a writer for a long time, there are many times I look back on notes that I have taken from producers and what, and been like, I should have never taken that note. I should have done that.
Right.
And somehow working on shorts and stuff like this, working with actors, working with Sterling, I never end up feeling that way. I always feel like when I back down, I was like, you know what? I'm so glad I did not stick my heels there. And I think there's a big difference between taking notes from people who are there with you on the project and passionate about it, and taking notes from somebody who's sitting in an office.
Right.
Uh,
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it's so much harder to take feedback regardless of where it's coming from if you're not if you don't if there's not a general sense of empathy that this person who's giving me this feedback understands what we're trying to do, what we're working with,
Yeah.
because it can somewhat feel detached, it's like the worst feedback you can give everyone is like, oh, make it better. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's go and do
10%
that,
funny. I
Yeah,
got
Why does it
10%
10%
funny.
suck?
funny one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
No.
There's also I know that there's kind of an improvisational comedy background. I know Sterling, is you were Upright Citizens Brigade alumni,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I there's also like a Dropout TV feel to like some of this. Like when I was watching We're Not Them, like this feels like a Dropout skit, in the
Mhm.
best way possible. So how much of improv kind of went into the production process, especially since you both are such strong writers and creators, like, but also want
Right.
giving your actors the space to really lean into the role.
That's a funny question because shockingly, almost none. Like,
Okay, yeah.
and we had some fantastic improvisers on set. So there's a few things that came up on the day. Like there's a joke that people who've seen it will catch, which is um, Fina, whose character's name is Naira, says, I don't want to be that guy. And then Teach responds, person. And she goes, right, person, thank you. So that wasn't improvised, but it was something that Meg Swertlau, who's also in the film, who plays the corpse, she was watching behind monitor with us, and she just kind of whispered that in my ear, hey, have him say this. So there was definitely a sense of play. But as far as the actual production, unlike a lot of things that we've done, which are heavily improvised or influenced by improv, this was like very rigorously scripted, very rigorously storyboarded. We actually had like a story reel time to like dialogue that we made prior to going into this, which allowed us to move very quickly, which we needed to do because nobody has any money. It's 2026. But yeah, so it was actually like very, very scripted, but certainly, and the Dropout TV references, very well received. Thank you. Uh, Certainly, our background in comedy and in sketch in particular was very influential in writing the script. So I definitely think that it feels like, I think at its bones, it very much has the structure of like a, a
Yeah,
Monty
it's a
Python
Monty
sketch.
Python sketch.
Yeah,
I remember when we were writing it going like, well, what would Monty Python do? And I remember very vividly going, well, they'd have someone screaming on the floor by the end. So
right.
that was
Right. Which, spoiler alert, there's somebody screaming on the
screaming.
floor at the end.
Well, I mean, not even saying who, but there's a random decapitation in the film, and it's just like it's
Yeah.
so matter of fact that I think that's because what makes it so funny is that there's no like moment to react for the camera so that the joke lands. It's like, no, this just happened, and it's the
Right.
same with the like mundane like aspect of the political correctness in this midst of this obviously much more futile situation. It's like, no, we
Right.
have to make sure we're doing this in an inclusive way, and I think that it's we're reaching a point with maybe comedy in some, but we've got to move beyond this like attacking comedy for not punching down, right? I think that there was we were entering this space of a lot of these manosphere influencers and things like that trying to tell us like, oh, it's okay to make jokes that are making fun of other people. It's like, no, like let the comedy speak for itself. And we're at a point where we can
Right.
now make fun of some of the overcorrection perhaps that's happened to to accommodate things like language, but at the same time not forgetting that yeah, these things matter and like progress
Right.
takes time, but true progress is when you can look backwards on it and start to make fun of it in a way that isn't degrading it but rather uplifting it.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, and again, this is not going to make any sense to anybody who hasn't seen the film, but I do think there's a degree of like, well, first of all, I don't know that the characters who are thrown together into the situation are necessarily all on the same page about these things. It's just like they're kind of forced into this group. But there is a character who is very concerned about sort of dotting their I's and crossing their T's with everything, and you're kind of going like, there's somebody literally killing people. Like, can we just focus?
This guy's got a
Um,
knife. He's disemboweling
right.
over here. Like this is not good.
And I will speak personally. The character's name is Teach. I don't disagree with Teach. Like Teach is making some very valid points throughout the film. It's just fucking time and place. You know what I mean? Like there's literally somebody with a knife right here. Can we focus? So yeah, I mean, and that, again, that just came sort of organically as we were writing it. Just like like because again, by him being such a freaking weenie, it's in service of trying to like force, okay, we're this group, you're outside of it. It's sort of like we're over here, you're out there, and that's very much part of the dynamic that's happening between the group and Naira in the shed. So yeah, it's just an opportunity to kind of exploit that for comedy. But again, I'm team Teach, so
Yeah, it's very much about trying to thread that needle where certainly they all think that they are trying to do what's best for themselves and everyone there,
yeah,
but he's focused on the wrong part, which is he's trying to be correct about everything instead of caring about who's getting hurt.
right.
And that's where the comedy always comes from, is somebody is deluded, somebody's concerned with the wrong part of something, is where so much comedy comes from.
Right. And you can be the most progressive person on earth, but when you don't listen to women, bad things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I think there's so much about this you could take away from the story, and like again, it never bludgeons you with this idea that you have to believe these things. It so much just puts them in a very non like risk averse situation where you're like, okay, yeah, I can understand why this is completely absurd, and like I get it. And I love the Monty Python comparison because I think one of the things that's really like the reason why Monty Python is, I think, still so funny is because it is about the absurdity of life, and so much about, and obviously you can caricaturize that a little bit and make it a little bit more um extreme, but still like the funniest part, the funniest skits that Monty Python has ever done are the ones that are the same, just the same, the funniest as the same SNL skits. They're just mundane,
Right.
someone just being just a strange character in the place of quote unquote normal people, or just a situation that is almost kind of like really normal and absurd, like the juxtaposition of a people trying to come inside, but at the same time we're arguing about politics, on the inside. It's such a
No, very
fun.
much so. It's trying to make a sketch which is about when you feel crazy in life, which is what I think of in Monty Python is frequently like their most famous is the parrot sketch where he's trying to return a dead parrot, and the person behind the counter is just giving all kinds of excuses about why it's not dead, and it's just everyone has felt that insanity. Everyone
Right.
has talked to a person at a store and just felt like they were treating you like a fool, and
Right.
that
Drywall
extreme
stare.
emotion, yeah, that extreme feeling is what's at the heart of this too, which is just like you feel like you're going nuts listening to people talk in the world, and it feels like they're arguing about what to call the place while someone's stabbing them in the gut. So
Right.
that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
What do you want to call our hotel that's burning down in the ground right now?
Right.
Yeah, very
And
much.
Wilder, I saw that you had written the Day of the Dead series for I think it was Sci-Fi back before.
Yeah.
So this feels like a zombie homecoming of sorts.
Yeah.
What was it that like some of the experience you kind of gained from that process that we're able to apply to this? Because again, we're not necessarily dealing with zombies per se, but zombie films are by nature kind of siege films because it's about keeping things out and
Oh, yeah.
protecting what's in.
And in particular, what we were doing with the Day of the Dead was making a comical and more modern take on. Well, I don't want to say more modern, but certainly a present day version of it. So it wasn't. It was a lot about trying to find ways to do stuff that was different and that was funny in ways that hadn't been done before, and to do it on a very low budget. Um,
It's
so
the
there was
key.
a lot of that
Shout
discussion
out
of
Sci-Fi Channel. Yeah.
yeah, how do you get the maximum gore and ooh factor and comedy out of the gore and the ooh uh, for no money? And so there was a lot of that discussion in the room that was very helpful. Scott and Jed, who were the showrunners, had done some low budget horror stuff as well as a lot of Disney Channel stuff, and so it was really interesting to go back and forth in the writers' room between trying to figure out, like, well, can we afford to throw all these body parts out of the back of the limo? And then you're going right to a discussion about like a mom and a kid and the drama of it. And I don't know, it has been such a part of everything I've ever done, the low budget part, that it's really part of the joy of it for me. Is like you said, it's like you can use comedy to have a limitation be a strength.
Yeah.
And you brought up a perfect example with the decapitation, where it's like, well, we're not going to linger on this because this is what people want to see, and by not showing them that, it's going to be funny. and it's
Right.
going to it's going to make the feel so different. And just like you said, trying to find ways to take people's expectations for what you would do if this was a straight horror and make them laugh because you've done something else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
There,
that
there's
would be his.
there are certain things that you would expect to be quick flashes that we linger on for an absurdly long amount of time. There's a couple. There's kind of one and a half disembowelments in the film. And yeah, and then the decapitation. That was like something we even talked about in editing, as it was like there was the, do we do we make this shorter or do we make this like longer? But we were talking frames because we wanted to keep it very, very like just
Yeah.
quick read.
It is blink and you
Um,
miss it kind of thing because I actually rewound it. I'm like, wait a minute, did I just
right.
is that what
Oh,
I
great.
thought I saw? I'm like, okay, that is what I saw, and I went back. And it is funny because you almost start the film starts with everything that someone might want in frame, which is like we have someone who's got their guts out, who's dead. We've got someone who's holding a knife, who's clearly not the right person to be holding that knife, and we have a group of characters who are already showing their personality through their language and dialogue. So you
Right.
get all of that, you get kind of immediate immersion into the situation, and you also delight people with something that you don't have to wait for that gratification of the disembowelment. And it also leads to one of like the funniest lines in here, which is "Don't pull it out," and like
Right.
it's just like like it's just, and then he's like, oh, I shouldn't have done, like it's I think that the pace of the jokes works so much in favor of being able to enjoy it, because again, if you're not paying attention, you're not going to get rewarded by the enjoyment of the little subtleties. But if you are, you'll be the person cracking up the most in the room. So
Yeah.
Oh, I
I think this is
appreciate it.
a
That's
short
really
that
cool.
begs you to pay attention to it.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that's
That's
really
very
cool.
kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
Um,
it's all true. um,
True
and
and kind.
Yeah, and then those two don't often overlap. So when the Venn diagrams circles get that close, it's a positive. And
Right.
um, I a fun question I'd love to end with both of you on is just around like
Yeah.
thinking about the Beast being heavily inspired by things like the Twilight Zone, the Outer Limits. Do you have any particular episodes that you find to be your personal favorites of either of those shows? And I'll admit I don't know Outer Limits near as well as I know Twilight Zone, but curious to
yeah.
know if you have any personal favorite episodes that you go back to often.
I think Wilder's going to be a little bit more familiar with the source material. I'm gonna misquote names of episodes and things, but Wilder, you
Yeah.
first, and then I'll agree
Yeah.
with you, and then it'll look like we
I
both know what
also
we're talking
don't
about.
have names of episodes, but I have watched them on, I think it was New Year's Eve. They used to have a marathon of these.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
one of my favorites is the one where the astronaut has landed in a foreign planet, and you find out that he's basically in somebody's house, and he's just a
Yes.
tiny little thing. Everybody's gigantic. I love that one. We looked at very cliche answer, but we looked at 20,000 feet when we were doing the Terror at 20,000 feet with Shatner seeing the
Yeah.
creature outside the wing of the plane. We looked at that a lot when we were looking at how to do the color on this,
Yeah.
just to try and match the feel of their interiors there, just because we liked how it looked. But yeah, I love the general feel of those shows. It's not even so much about the specific. It's here's a fun little idea, and we're just gonna explore every of it. And you can have like you couldn't do a feature film or a TV series about somebody landing in somebody's house, but you can do a one episode thing, and just those kind of ideas. We have some anthology shows now, but they don't have that sense of fun that the older ones did to me.
Yeah.
Black Mirror is great, but it is a totally different vibe.
Yes.
I feel like, and I love that vibe of having a fun idea that can be both dark and obviously funny, and going through it in a handmade way is just so much fun.
Um, yeah, I'll say, I mean, Wilder just called it out as cliche, so now I'm embarrassed, but Terror at 20,000 feet is I think perfect. I think it's really fantastic, and it's been parodied very well and remade, and it's kind of a classic episode. There's another episode which I am not going to be able to conjure the name of, and I can't even 100% promise that it's a Twilight Zone episode, but it is. There's an episode where there's a prisoner on like a prison planet, and he gets delivered basically like a robot companion who just loves him unconditionally and just agrees with everything that he says, and he goes crazy and kills it because he's like, tell me the truth, tell me, it's been years since I've seen it, but I just those kinds of ideas, like just like really drilling down on human nature and like the intersection with technology, and I mean currently just with a lot of conversation about like
Oh,
I
AI.
just
I mean, the
rewatched
whole like
Companion the other night, like it's, I love those sort of things that give you that little bit of a brain tickle, just conceptually. So I'll look and I'll email you the name of that episode. But
I
yeah,
mean, I've got a Blu-ray of all of them that I have not seen all of them. I
right.
realize that in saying that, it probably puts me in a position to be the expert here. But I actually end up just putting on Pluto TV a lot and just putting on their Twilight Zone channel when I'm unsure what I want to watch, because they're endlessly rewatchable, and the lasting power of them is so press pertinent today. I mean, just thinking about the idea of the robot that wouldn't can stop lying. I mean, that's Chat GPT. Like these are uh, you know confirmation bias machines basically. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's
and
unbelievable. It's
yeah,
amazing that they, yeah, that just a group of writers sat down and imagined these things, and you didn't realize how prescient they were until 5 years ago. Like
right. And these are made in the
for 40
60s.
years, it was just a funny sci-fi idea, and then suddenly, boop, we're experiencing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're modeling our future off of the wrong maybe sci-fi episodes. We need to think
Yeah,
more Back to the Future, maybe
absolutely.
part two, minus the
Please.
Biff taking over scene. But
Yeah, he
yeah,
did that. He's done that very well.
we're already on that timeline. It's not going well.
Yeah.
Um, but I just want to say thank you both, Waller. Thank you to you as well,
Yeah.
Sterling, for the time here. I
Okay.
probably could talk to you all day about anything and everything, but I want to remind folks that are watching this that if you're going to be in Chicago for Beyond Fest, please make it a point to go and check out the premiere. I'm hoping you all we're showing this at other film festivals as well, and always do our best to support whatever you're doing, and definitely keep our eyes on Spaceship Town, because I feel like there's so much good between the horror and the humor that comes together there. So thank you both for this time, and we've always got friends here at Macabre Daily.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Really appreciate that.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
both.
much.